where curiosity curls up under a warm blanket and the body's mysteries drift softly into moonlight. Tonight, we're taking a gentle journey into a world you carry with you always, one that works tirelessly even as you dream. It's your shield, your silent army, your lifelong companion through coughs, cuts, and curious microbes. Yes, tonight is all about the immune system, that invisible guardian patrolling every corner of you, catching intruders, learning from them, and somehow remembering, like an old librarian with an impeccable grudge. But before we wander into white blood cells and whispered battles, let me ask, where in the world are you tonight, and how are you feeling? Not just your thoughts, but your body. Do you sense it, just beneath the skin, this quiet choreography of defense? If this journey brings you even a sliver of calm, or simply gives your thoughts something soft to settle on, I'd be ever so grateful if you gave the video a like, or subscribe to keep this sleepy sanctuary growing. Now, I do hope learning about your body's secret superheroes doesn't keep you up, but if it does, well, at least you'll fall asleep knowing more about the armies within than when you began. So settle in, loosen your thoughts, let your breath be your guide. Because somewhere between fevers and forgotten germs, between sneezes and soft dreams, lies the story of how your body fights to keep you well. It's a strange feeling, isn't it? That heaviness behind your eyes just before a cold sets in, the sudden shiver on an otherwise mild day, a soreness in your throat that wasn't there yesterday, but now seems to hum like a warning bell only your body can hear. We all know what it's like to feel off, to feel invaded. But rarely do we think about what's happening beneath that sensation, the invisible whisper of your immune system stirring quietly into action. The immune response doesn't always come with sirens. Sometimes it's just a yawn that won't quit, a craving for soup, a sense that you're a little more breakable than usual. We talk about feeling run down, as if the body were a little house with its lights dimmed and windows closed, waiting out a storm. But in truth, inside that quiet body of yours, a vast and intricate defense is underway. You're not just lying in bed, you're hosting a microscopic war, elegant, organized, and deeply personal. And yet, you don't hear it. You don't feel the moment a virus is intercepted. You don't cheer the white blood cell that sacrificed itself in the respiratory tract to keep your lungs safe. You don't name the antibodies like warriors in a poem. Still, they are there. Always. Working. Perhaps that's the oddest thing about it. We often only notice our immune system when it fails, when we sneeze, ache, sweat, or swell. When your nose runs, it's easy to curse your body, but perhaps that runny nose is a message. We found something. We're pushing it out. Don't worry, we've done this before. It's strange to think of our bodies as learning, but they do. Your immune system keeps a memory of what it's fought before, like a traveller who always leaves breadcrumbs home. It doesn't just defend, it remembers, and in that memory it becomes stronger. How human is that? We often imagine immunity as a shield, cold, hard, absolute. But in truth, it's more like intuition, sometimes wrong, often wise, always learning. It knows when to trust, when to wait, when to go in all at once. And perhaps that's why immune discomfort feels so personal. When you're ill, your entire sense of self shifts. Moods droop, thoughts tangle, dreams tilt sideways. It's not just a sore throat. It's a temporary rewriting of the whole narrative of you. There are moments when you're sick that the world softens. Your appetite goes quiet. The bed becomes both your battlefield and your sanctuary. And somewhere inside you, without needing your attention, a war unfolds cell by cell, breath by breath. What a strange intimacy, to be the house and the city, the citizen and the battlefield, the patient and the cure, all at once. You don't have to know what's happening to be the one it's happening in. Even more curious is how your body responds not only to invaders, but to stress, to grief, to fear. Your immune system is tuned to your emotions, A long hard week can wear it down. A heartbreak can weaken it. A laugh, oddly enough, can strengthen it. You might have heard that. Laughter is the best medicine, not far off. Joy, connection, rest. These aren't just poetic comforts, they're chemical messages. They tell your immune system, it's okay, we're safe here. Lower your guard, but stay ready. And in that, we see something vital. The immune system isn't separate from you. It is you. It's your past illnesses, your childhood vaccinations, your allergies, your recoveries. It's your resilience, written in proteins and pathways. A living story of what your body has faced and what it believes it can face again. Sometimes it misreads the situation. A harmless peanut becomes a deadly threat. A speck of pollen becomes a 5-alarm fire. That's the tricky thing about vigilance. Too much of it becomes its own danger. But we'll come to that in time. For now, think of your immune system not as a cold machine, but a creature within you, protective, curious, fiercely loyal, sometimes a little overzealous, but always yours. And here's the quiet beauty of it all. Most of the time, it does its work in silence. You breathe in thousands of bacteria a day. You touch doorknobs and handshake strangers. You bite your nails, kiss your loved ones, sip from old coffee mugs. And more often than not, you are fine. Because of the billions of immune cells humming through your bloodstream like whispered scouts, scanning, recognizing, eliminating, and moving on. You're a walking miracle of detection and defense. And though you'll rarely see it, and may not always feel it, your body is always watching, always learning, always choosing between peace and protection. So the next time you sneeze, or feel a little fever rise like a lantern in your chest, try not to curse it. That heat is a signal. That soreness is strategy. That fatigue is not failure, it's focus. Your body, even in weakness, is fighting for your strength. And perhaps, just perhaps, the most extraordinary thing about the immune system is that it doesn't ask for thanks. It simply does its job. Night after night, year after year, lifetime after lifetime. Just imagine, right now, as you listen, you may be healing in ways you cannot see. Your body is remembering something, patching something, reinforcing its walls with the bricks of your past battles, preparing you, quietly, for whatever comes next. What an extraordinary thing to be, not just alive, but defended. Long before we knew the words bacteria, antibodies, or immune system, we knew the feeling of illness, the heavy heat of fever, the ache that settles into the joints like fog, the rattle of breath in the chest. Sickness, after all, has always been with us, as ancient as fire, as primal as fear, and from the very beginning humans tried to make sense of it. Before microscopes and medicine, we turned to the stories we understood. Spirits, humours, curses, blessings. The body wasn't a battlefield. It was a sacred space, caught in a tug-of-war between unseen forces. If someone fell ill, perhaps they had been touched by a god, or perhaps they had angered one. In ancient Mesopotamia, disease was often seen as punishment from divine beings, retribution, a lesson, or the result of evil spirits entering the body. Priests would perform rituals, chant incantations, burn herbs. Healing wasn't just about herbs or rest. It was about restoring balance to the soul's unseen battles. In Egypt, healers were both doctors and magicians. They believed in channels that ran through the body, much like the Nile through their land. Illness came when those channels were blocked by chaos, spirits, or decay. To cure the body was to cleanse it. Rituals were recited as ointments were applied. Science and spirituality were braided tightly together. The ancient Greeks took another route. Hippocrates, often called the father of medicine, proposed that health depended on the balance of 4 bodily fluids: blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile. These humours were linked to temperament, seasons, even astrology. If you had too much of one, illness followed. A fever might be seen as an excess of blood, a melancholy mood, too much black bile. This theory, wildly incorrect by today's standards, persisted for centuries. But it hinted at something enduring, the idea that the body has an inner logic, a system, a balance that can be disturbed or restored. And in that early search for balance, perhaps we were already brushing against the edges of immunity, the invisible effort the body makes to maintain its own harmony. In China, the traditional understanding of health was woven through with the concepts of qi, yin and yang, and the balance of energies. Illness was seen as a disruption in the flow of vital energy. The body was not just flesh and bone. It was a landscape of forces. Herbs, acupuncture, diet and movement were tools not just to treat symptoms, but to guide the energy back into its proper flow. These ideas may sound distant from white blood cells and cytokine storms, but they share a common instinct, the belief that the body is always trying to heal itself, that illness is not a failure, but a signal, a message, a momentary loss of equilibrium. Indigenous cultures around the world carried their own deep knowledge of illness and healing. In the Americas, shamans would guide healing ceremonies with plants, chants, and sacred smoke. In Africa, traditional healers might use roots, prayers, and drumming to restore health. Often, the treatment addressed not just the body, but the community, the spirit, the story of the illness. Disease wasn't just in the person, it was around them. It lived in relationships, in rituals, in meaning. And so healing too became communal, a shared act of tending to life. Even language reveals how we've understood sickness over time. The word immunity comes from the Latin immunis, meaning exempt. Originally it referred to being freed from a burden, like taxes or military service. To be immune was to be untouched, protected, above the chaos. Centuries later, the word transformed. Now to be immune is not to escape battle, but to have already fought it and won. And yet, through all these shifts, through spirits and humours, energy and elements, one idea has quietly remained, that illness is not just an attack, but a dialogue. The body, even in suffering, is speaking. Sometimes we answer with medicine, sometimes with ritual, sometimes with rest, but always with care. In medieval Europe, illness was deeply moralized. Plagues were seen as divine punishment, a test of faith, a reason to repent. Leprosy and other visible diseases carried shame. The sick were often isolated, not out of scientific understanding, but fear. Still, even then, small threads of medical progress emerged. Monasteries preserved herbal knowledge. Early hospitals took shape. The first inoculations were still far away, but the seeds of curiosity were being planted. Over time, the wind shifted. The Enlightenment brought a new hunger for observation, for reason, for the seen rather than the sacred. Antony van Leeuwenhoek peered through his handmade microscope in the 1600s and discovered a teeming world of invisible life. Little animalcules, he called them, tiny motes swimming in a drop of water. He didn't know it yet, but he was gazing at the immune system's lifelong sparring partners. It would still take another 2 centuries before germ theory would rise, before we understood that some illnesses came not from spirits or imbalances, but from microorganisms, tiny invaders with no malice, just biology. And in response, a new way of seeing the body emerged, not just as a system to be balanced, but a fortress, a city with walls, guards, scouts, and memory. But the story wasn't complete. It never is. Even today, different cultures carry their own metaphors for immunity. In the West, we often speak of fighting disease, a war metaphor, antibodies as soldiers, pathogens as enemies, a constant battle to be won. In other cultures, illness is less a war than a negotiation, something to be soothed, not conquered. In Ayurvedic medicine from India, the goal is to restore harmony between body, mind and spirit, using herbs, diet and meditation. The immune system isn't a battlefield, but a garden. One you tend, season by season, with care and balance. And in some indigenous traditions, illness may not be seen as something separate from the self, but as a teacher, a messenger, an invitation to slow down, to listen, to reconnect with nature and ancestry. All these views may seem contradictory, but perhaps they're not. Perhaps they are different windows looking in on the same hidden architecture. One emphasizes battle, another, balance, still another, belonging. Together they form a deeper truth, that healing is never just physical, it is emotional, spiritual, social, and the immune system, though made of cells and molecules, does not act in isolation. It listens to your history, your environment, your memories, your rituals. It listens, in its own biochemical way, to who you are. Even today, some languages carry traces of these ancient intuitions. In Japanese, the immune system is called meneki, meaning avoidance of harm. In Arabic, it's al-mana'a, linked to strength and defense. In Swahili, the word kinga can mean protection, shield, immunity. And in Hebrew, chisun means reinforcement, a reminder that to immunize is to strengthen, not just to prevent. These aren't just translations, they are philosophies. They show us how cultures continue to interpret health through the lens of resilience, balance, and belonging. And maybe that's something we can carry forward as we navigate a modern world full of medicines, vaccines, microbes, and stress. That healing is not just a function, it's a story, a conversation, a process held in both body and language. Even in modern hospitals, beneath the fluorescent lights and Latin terminology, you'll still find echoes of the old world. The herbalist, now in the form of a pharmacologist. The shaman, reborn as a therapist or spiritual counselor. The ritual, reframed as a regimen. And the immune system, still mysterious, still adapting, still silently at work, is not just a set of processes to be understood. It is the continuation of something ancient, a system older than belief, one that remembers every invader you've ever survived, and keeps watch. Not because it was told to, but because it is you. If the immune system were a character in a story, it wouldn't be a single hero, but a hidden society. Not just one defender, but a nation of protectors living quietly inside you, each with its own job, its own personality, and its own version of loyalty. And to understand how it all works, how this silent army fends off bacteria, viruses, and microscopic threats, we must first begin not with war, but with wisdom. Because the immune system doesn't lash out blindly. It listens, it learns, and only then it acts. Let's start at the surface. Your first line of defense is your skin, the ancient wall that keeps most invaders out before they ever step foot inside. It's not just a covering, it's an ecosystem. Dry, acidic, home to millions of friendly microbes that form a neighborhood too inhospitable for many would-be invaders. A kind of welcome sign for the good guys, and a locked door for the bad. Then there are your mucous membranes. Soft, moist gateways lining your nose, throat, lungs, and digestive tract. These areas are more vulnerable, so the body lines them with traps, sticky mucus, little cilia that wave like seagrass, sweeping particles away, acids in the stomach that dissolve most unwanted guests on contact, saliva and tears that wash and dilute. Even your cough and sneeze, though often unwelcome, are reflexes with a purpose, expulsion, defense by ejection. And yet some intruders still make it past these guards. That's when the deeper defenses stir awake. Now we enter the realm of the innate immune system, your body's first internal responder. Innate immunity is fast. It doesn't wait for introductions. It doesn't ask questions. If something looks wrong, wrong shape, wrong signal, wrong location, it attacks. Here we find phagocytes, Greek for eating cells. These include macrophages which roam the body like watchful custodians, always cleaning up. When they find a suspicious invader, they engulf it, digest it, and sound the alarm. There are neutrophils too, the most abundant white blood cells first to the scene, like cellular firefighters. They arrive fast, release toxic chemicals and die quickly, forming the creamy battlefield aftermath we call pus, and then the natural killer cells. No, really, that's their name. Unlike their more diplomatic siblings, they look for cells that used to belong, like your own, but have since gone rogue, infected, damaged, or transformed. They sense the absence of a proper ID badge, and without ceremony, they strike. These are your body's silent assassins, stopping trouble before it spreads. But innate immunity, for all its speed, is clumsy. It's a bit like a neighbourhood watch armed with sticks. Effective, but indiscriminate. It doesn't remember what it fights. Every invader is treated the same, so when the battle lingers, when the invader is clever, mutating, hiding, your body calls in the specialists. This brings us to the adaptive immune system. Slower, smarter, and profoundly more personal. It's here that your body does something extraordinary. It learns. The adaptive immune system is built around lymphocytes, a type of white blood cell with memory. There are two main kinds, T cells and B cells. If the innate system is your infantry, these are your analysts, your strategists, and your long-range weapons all rolled into one. B cells are like little factories for custom-made defense tools as antibodies. Each B cell is trained to recognize a single invader, one shape, one chemical signature. Out of the billions of possibilities, your body somehow has the blueprint ready, or will make it if needed. When a B cell finds its match, let's say a bacterial protein it's never seen before, it begins to divide rapidly, clones itself. Some become plasma cells, pumping out antibodies by the thousands. Others become memory cells, storing that recognition for years, sometimes decades. Those antibodies, small Y-shaped proteins, float freely in your bloodstream, each one designed to stick to a specific foreign target, called an antigen. When they bind, they mark the intruder like a glowing tag. This does not belong here. Then other immune cells swoop in, alerted to the target. Meanwhile, T cells move differently. They don't make antibodies. They get up close. Some T cells, called helper T cells, act like commanders. They signal and coordinate the rest of the immune system, directing B cells, waking up macrophages, amplifying the response. Without them, much of your defense collapses into confusion. Then there are cytotoxic T cells, which seek out infected cells. They peer at the proteins presented on each cell's surface like IDs at a border. If the ID says, "I'm infected," the T cell attaches, pierces, and releases enzymes that quietly convince the cell to die. This process is deliberate, precise, choreographed, and like any good choreography, it leaves behind a pattern. Once the invader is gone, most of the fighters die off. Part of the cleanup, but some are saved. Memory B cells, memory T cells. These stay behind, quietly patrolling. The next time that same invader appears, the response is immediate, powerful, specific. This is what we call immunity. Not the absence of threat, but the body's ability to remember it. Vaccines use this principle. By introducing a harmless version or piece of a pathogen, one that can't make you sick, they give your immune system a practice run, like a fire drill. You make memory cells without the danger. So if the real pathogen ever comes knocking, your body won't fumble. It'll recognize the shape, the smell, the signature, and respond like it's seen it all before, because it has. Let's linger a little longer in the quiet marvel of immunity, this memory held in flesh, this learning carved into cells. Because while it's easy to imagine the immune system as a wall or a weapon, it's also something more subtle, a teacher, a student, a long-term archivist of the microscopic world. Once a pathogen is cleared, a bacterial invasion halted, a virus defeated, your immune system doesn't just move on. It files the information away, not in folders or databases, but in cells, long-lived, ever-ready, waiting in lymph nodes, bone marrow, and blood, watching for a familiar shadow. And the next time that intruder dares return, something astonishing happens. Your body doesn't hesitate. Memory B cells leap into action, making antibodies at record speed. Memory T cells wake and patrol. The entire response unfolds not over days, but hours. Sometimes the infection never gets a foothold at all. You don't even know you're exposed, because your body remembered. Think of how extraordinary that is, that something so small, so precise, can protect you for years after a single encounter. Your body has met this danger before. It will not be caught unaware. But of course, not all bacteria are the same, and not all memory lasts forever. Bacteria are clever. They evolve. Some wear new disguises, changing their surface protein so your immune cells don't recognize them. Others form biofilms, slimy fortresses that shield them from immune attacks. Some hide inside your very cells, using your own body as cover. This is where the immune system's nuance comes into play. Sometimes defense means destruction, clearing out infected cells even if it causes damage. Sometimes it means restraint, tolerating harmless bacteria so the immune system doesn't waste its strength. And that brings us to one of the most fascinating truths. You're never truly alone. Right now, your body contains trillions of bacteria, more than you have human cells. They live in your gut, your mouth, your skin. They digest your food, train your immune system, even help produce vitamins. This community is called the microbiome, and it's not just tolerated, it's essential. Your immune system isn't just a sword, it's a diplomat. It learns to recognize friend from foe, harmless from harmful, self from not self. This is called immune tolerance, and it is vital. Without it, your immune system would attack everything, including you. And sometimes, sadly, it does. When immune tolerance breaks down, the system begins to mistake your own tissues for enemies. This is called autoimmunity, a case of friendly fire. Conditions like lupus, type 1 diabetes, and rheumatoid arthritis are all examples. The immune system, so beautifully tuned, becomes confused. It forgets who it's supposed to protect. But that same system, confused in one context, can be a miracle in another. Consider immunotherapy, a field of medicine that trains the immune system to fight cancer. Tumours are clever. They disguise themselves as healthy tissue, hide from immune detection, suppress nearby cells. But with the right prompts, a modified antibody, a checkpoint inhibitor, your immune system can be reminded. That cell is not one of us, and the fight begins anew. The immune system isn't static, it adapts. It's shaped by your environment, your genetics, your age. Infants are born with developing defenses, still naive to the world. Elders may have memory cells aplenty, but slower responses, and illness, especially infection, is only one thread in this story. The immune system is involved in wound healing, inflammation, tissue repair. It helps shape brain development in childhood. It interacts with hormones. It responds to the foods you eat, the air you breathe, the sleep you get, or don't. Even stress, that invisible weight we carry, leaves fingerprints on the immune system. Chronic stress can weaken it, suppressing the activity of protective cells. Joy and rest, on the other hand, support its quiet work. Your immune system is always listening, not just for pathogens, but for patterns. A restless week, a sudden grief, a steady joy. It's more than a defense mechanism. It's a mirror of your internal life. And still, through all this complexity, it keeps going. Right now, as you listen to this gentle story, perhaps under a warm blanket or in the still hush of night, your immune system is at work. Not frantically, not violently, just watching, circulating, checking, maintaining a balance so precise that we rarely notice it until it falters. That is the elegance of it, not the drama, but the constancy, the soft daily miracle of being protected, even in sleep. Let's step gently now into the finer gears of this intricate machine, not just what the immune system is, but how it moves, learns, adapts, and sometimes errs. Because the immune system isn't a monologue, it's a symphony, and every section, every instrument, plays a slightly different part. To make sense of this, let's divide it into 4 soft movements: mechanism, implications, anomalies, and interconnections. Let's begin, quietly, with mechanism. Inside your body, immune function happens on multiple scales, from massive lymph nodes nestled under your jaw to the quiet twitch of a T-cell responding to a signal. Some immune responses are swift and dramatic. Others unfold slowly, like a long conversation between old friends. We often imagine immune activity as linear. Infection enters, body responds, infection clears. But in truth, it's more like an orchestra with many themes playing at once. There are signalers and responders, regulators and effectors, cells that initiate and others that suppress. It starts with recognition, how the body knows what doesn't belong. Every cell in your body carries molecular name tags on its surface, small clusters of proteins called MHC molecules. These let immune cells check, are you one of us? Are you well? If yes, the immune system moves on. If no, if the ID is unfamiliar or damaged or missing, then the alarm is quietly raised. Macrophages and dendritic cells are the scouts, the border agents. When they detect a problem, they process the intruder and present fragments of it, little protein trophies, on their surfaces. These fragments are the clues, the evidence, the wanted posters. They travel to lymph nodes and present them to naive T-cells, searching for one that recognizes the shape. This is a moment of uncanny precision. Out of billions of T-cells, each designed to recognize a slightly different molecular pattern, only a few will match the fragment. When they do, they awaken, they multiply, they prepare. This process is called clonal selection, and it's part of what makes your adaptive immunity so specific, so powerful. The right cell is chosen, that cell becomes an army. At the same time, cytokines, tiny signaling proteins, are being released like chemical whispers, telling other cells where to go, what to do, how strongly to respond. Some cytokines amplify inflammation. Others tell cells to calm down. They're like conductors in the immune orchestra, balancing urgency with control. And then comes the response itself. Cytotoxic T cells seek out infected cells and gently initiate their self-destruction. Apoptosis. No chaos, just a programmed clean death. Meanwhile, B cells release antibodies tailored to the invader's unique shape. These antibodies do not kill, they flag, they block, they call others to do the cleanup. Some antibodies neutralize, by binding to a virus and preventing it from entering cells. Others agglutinate, clumping invaders together so they're easier to remove. Some even activate complement proteins, a cascade of molecules that punch holes in bacterial membranes. All of this happens not in days, but often in hours. Incredible, isn't it? That such orchestration occurs in silence. No drums, no flashing lights, just molecules moving in rhythm, cells gliding through your bloodstream like dancers with a purpose. But what does all this mean? Let's move now into the second theme, implications. The immune system isn't only about fighting illness, it shapes your development, your aging, even your personality in subtle ways. During infancy, your immune system is naive, like a young traveller in a new land. It learns fast, encounters microbes, builds tolerance. This is why babies often get sick frequently in their first few years. It's not weakness, it's training. Their bodies are studying, learning the dialect of the microbial world. In early life, a little bit of exposure to soil, to animals, to other children, helps shape a resilient immune system. This is sometimes called the hygiene hypothesis, the idea that overly sterile environments might leave the immune system undertrained, more prone to allergies and autoimmunity later in life. Your immune system also helps sculpt your tissues. In the brain, immune cells called microglia help prune unused synapses during development. literally shaping how your mind grows. In the gut, immune cells help manage your microbiome, deciding which bacteria to tolerate and which to expel. As you age, the immune system changes. The thymus, an organ where T cells mature, shrinks with time and fewer new T cells are made. Memory cells accumulate, but response times slow. Vaccines may work less efficiently. Infections hit harder. Inflammaging, a quiet, chronic inflammation associated with aging, can emerge, subtly influencing everything from cardiovascular health to mood. But even in old age, your immune system is adapting. It may be slower, but it's still listening, still learning, still quietly at work. Sometimes, though, the balance is disturbed. This brings us to the third theme, anomalies. The immune system, for all its brilliance, is not infallible, and when it makes mistakes, the effects can ripple widely. Take allergies, those curious overreactions to things that pose no real threat. Pollen, pet dander, peanuts. In these cases, the immune system responds as if under attack, triggering the release of histamines and other chemicals that cause swelling, sneezing, itching, and in some cases anaphylaxis. Why does it happen? The full answer isn't known, but part of it may lie in genetics, early exposure, and again, training. The immune system, lacking real enemies in early childhood, may turn to false ones. It's like a guard dog that never learned the difference between visitors and intruders. Then there are autoimmune diseases, where the body attacks itself. Cells meant to protect become confused. In multiple sclerosis, the immune system targets the myelin sheath around nerve cells. In type 1 diabetes, it destroys insulin-producing cells in the pancreas. In lupus, it turns on tissues throughout the body. These conditions are not failures in the classic sense. They're examples of a system trying to be vigilant, but losing its bearings. The difference between self and not self, once so clear, becomes blurred. And then, of course, there's immunodeficiency, when the system is weakened or absent. This can be genetic, as in severe combined immunodeficiency, SCID, where children are born without functional immune responses, or acquired, like in HIV/AIDS, where a virus slowly dismantles the immune system's capacity to respond. But not all anomalies are destructive. Some are hopeful. Scientists have discovered people who carry rare mutations that make them resistant to certain infections, like HIV or malaria. Others have immune quirks that might protect against cancer. Each of these exceptions teaches us something, that the immune system is not fixed. It's a living experiment shaped by evolution, culture, and chance. And finally, we arrive at our fourth and final theme in this deep dive: interconnection. Because the immune system does not live alone. It speaks to every other system in your body, quietly, constantly, to your nervous system, exchanging molecules that affect mood, stress, and cognition. In fact, depression has been linked to elevated levels of certain inflammatory cytokines. There's even a field for this: psychoneuroimmunology, the study of how mind, brain, and immune system interact. To your endocrine system, where hormones like cortisol, the stress hormone, can suppress immune activity, or estrogen, which influences inflammation and may help explain why some autoimmune diseases are more common in women. To your digestive system, where immune cells line the gut, distinguishing friend from foe. Here, the microbiome plays a crucial role. A diverse, balanced microbiome supports immune health. A disrupted one can lead to chronic inflammation, even mood disorders. And to your circadian system, your internal clock. Many immune responses fluctuate with the time of day. Some cells are more active at night. Others respond differently to infections depending on when they're encountered. Even the effectiveness of vaccines and medications can vary with the hour. Your immune system, in other words, is not a separate entity. It is a thread in the tapestry of you. It listens to your body. It speaks through your symptoms. It remembers your past. And it shapes your future. There's a kind of awe that settles in when you realize how much of your survival depends on things you never think about. Cells that don't speak a word but understand everything. responses timed to the second, deaths of individual cells that keep the larger you alive. And yet, the immune system has stranger stories still. Some of the most captivating come from edge cases, those puzzling or rare conditions that don't follow the usual script. They are where the immune system seems to colour outside the lines, revealing its potential, its fragility, and its depth. One such case is the immune privilege of certain body parts. Most of your tissues can spark a full-blown immune response when under attack, but some areas are exempt. Your brain, your eyes, your testes, even a developing fetus. These zones have what scientists call immune privilege, a kind of diplomatic immunity from full immune surveillance. Why? Because inflammation, while protective, can be destructive in the wrong place. The eye is too delicate, the brain too vital. Better to suppress the guards than risk friendly fire, but this privilege can also be